He mopped floors for 40 years, made $8.50 an hour, wore the same coat for decades. When he died in 2014, his lawyer opened a safety deposit box. Inside, stock certificates, stacked 5 inches high, 95 different companies. Total value? $8 million. His name was Ronald Read, and he proved something that Wall Street doesn't want you to know. You don't need a high salary to get rich. You need 3 things. And by the end of this story, you'll know exactly what they are. Ronald James Read was born in 1921 in rural Vermont. His family was poor, not struggling middle-class poor, actual poor. He was the first person in his family to graduate high school. That was his big achievement, high school. After graduation, he did what most men in his town did. He went to work. For 25 years, Ronald Read pumped gas at a Texaco station. Then he got a second job as a janitor at JCPenney. Here's what people remembered about Ronald Read. He wore the same blue jacket every day. He drove a beat-up Toyota. He cut his own firewood well into his 80s. His neighbors thought he was broke. Local store owners sometimes gave him discounts because they felt bad for him. He looked like a man who had nothing. And that was exactly the point. But here's what nobody knew. Every few weeks, Ronald Read would drive to the bank, not to withdraw money, to buy stock certificates. He stored them in a safety deposit box, and he never told anyone. Not his friends, not his neighbors. According to reports, not even his family knew the full extent of what he was building. Ronald Read worked 2 jobs until he was 75 years old. 75. Most people retire at 65. Read kept mopping floors, pumping gas, living on almost nothing. And the entire time, he was secretly getting rich. He never took vacations, never bought a new car, never ate at fancy restaurants. He lived like he was poor, because he was investing like he was rich. June 2, 2014. Ronald Read died at age 92. His family knew he'd saved some money, maybe $50,000, maybe $100,000, enough for a modest inheritance. When his lawyer opened that safety deposit box, nobody was prepared for what they found. Okay, let's talk about what Ronald Read actually did, because this is where it gets interesting. Most people assume he got lucky. Maybe he bought Apple in 1980. Maybe he invested in Microsoft or Amazon early. Some once-in-a-lifetime bet that paid off. That's not what happened. Ronald Read owned 95 different stocks, and most of them were the most boring companies you've ever heard of. Companies that sell things people need. Every single day, no matter what the economy is doing. Read didn't try to pick winners. He bought companies that couldn't lose. But here's the real genius of his strategy. Ronald Read followed 3 rules. 3 simple rules that anyone can follow. And these 3 rules turned $8 an hour into $8 million. Rule number 1. Buy what people need, not what's exciting. Read invested in boring companies. Companies that make products people can't stop buying. Diapers, toothpaste, prescription drugs, coffee. These companies don't double overnight, but they never go to zero either. Rule number 2. Reinvest every dividend, every single one. When Read stocks paid dividends, cash payments to shareholders, he didn't spend that money. He used it to buy more stock. This is called dividend reinvestment, and it's the closest thing to magic in investing. Over 40 years, this compounding effect turned tens of thousands into millions. Rule number 3. Never sell, ever. Read bought stocks in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, and according to available information, he held them until the day he died. He lived through the 1973 oil crisis, the 1987 crash, the 2000 dot-com bubble, the 2008 financial crisis. Every time the market crashed, everyone else panicked and sold. Read did nothing. He held, because he understood something most people don't. The market always recovers, always. And when it recovered, Read was still there, still holding, still getting richer. Okay, before we go any further, we need to talk about the other side of this story. Because Ronald Read didn't get rich for free. He paid a price. And it's a price most people aren't willing to pay. Ronald Read lived like he was broke, because he was investing every spare dollar. While his neighbors went on vacations, Read stayed home. While his co-workers bought new cars, Read drove a 20-year-old Toyota with rust on the doors. While his friends went out to dinner, Read ate at home. Simple meals. Nothing fancy. He cut his own firewood. He wore the same jacket for years. He lived in a modest house and never renovated it. So here's the question you're probably asking. Was it worth it? Read died at 92 with $8 million that he never got to enjoy. Was that a good life? Or a wasted one? Here's what I think. Ronald Read didn't see it as a sacrifice. He saw frugality as a game, a challenge, a source of pride. According to those who knew him, he seemed content. He didn't complain. He didn't seem miserable. He had his routine, his work, his investments, his quiet life. Maybe he was happy. Or maybe he was so focused on the future that he forgot to live in the present. I can't answer that for you, but I can tell you what happened to his fortune. When Ronald Read's will was read, his family expected a modest inheritance, maybe enough to cover the funeral, maybe a little extra. Instead, they learned he was worth $8 million. And then they learned something even more shocking. He left almost all of it to charity. $6 million went to the local hospital. $2 million went to the local library. The man who wore the same jacket for decades, who drove a rusted car, who never took a vacation. He gave it all away. The hospital used the money to build a new wellness center. The library created a scholarship fund and expanded their facilities. Ronald Read's name is now on buildings, plaques, scholarships. The janitor nobody noticed is now impossible to forget. So was it worth it? The decades of sacrifice, the frugal life, the quiet existence? I think Ronald Read would say yes, because he didn't build wealth for himself. He built it for people he'd never meet, for a community that barely knew he existed. And that changes everything. Okay, let's bring this home. You're not Ronald Read. You don't have to live like he did. That's fine. But his principles? They work for anyone. Starting today, 3 rules. Simple, actionable, no excuses. Rule 1. Buy boring companies people always need. Forget Tesla, crypto, meme stocks. Think diapers, toothpaste, food, power, medicine, businesses that last decades. Index funds, S&P 500, total market. Do this easily. Boring, reliable, proven. Rule 2. Reinvest dividends automatically. Use DRIP. Turn it on. Let compounding work. $500 a month at 7% for 40 years equals over $1.2 million. That's math, not luck. Rule 3. Never sell in a panic. Crashes will come. The news will scream. Do nothing. Hold. Buy more if you can. The market has recovered every single time. Ronald Read did. You can too.